Good afternoon, everyone. It is Saturday, August 21st, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and that means it's time for another Western Liberty Network Saturday Zoom session. These are held every single week at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and we typically either have a training on a specific topic or we have an informational session like we do today. Western Liberty Network is a 501c3 organization. As such, we do not endorse any candidate, even the ones we train, any political party. We don't endorse any ballot measure or legislation. What we do is provide citizens who are limited government activists with training and skills they need to be successful in the things they do in their own community. I will provide one quick item, and that is that we've done a full count of the May 18th nonpartisan local elections in Oregon, and 418 trainees of Western Liberty Network around the state were elected to some local office. There were 80 candidates who lost. Of those 80 who lost, 40 ran against other Western Liberty Network trained people. In some races, there were 2 or 3 limited government candidates running in a particular race. In addition to the victories, there are also limited government majorities now exist in a variety of districts, notably in the Newburgh School District, just outside of the Portland metro area, where they have decided to stop the district from using Black Lives Matter, rainbow, or any political symbols left or right in an official capacity. Also, Jeanette Sade, who ran for the Beaverton School Board, she lost her long shot race against an incumbent, well-funded teachers union supporter, but she used her campaign as a platform to launch Build Back Basics, a political action committee that supports school choice. It supports basic skills and opposes things like critical race theory. So that all has gone very well. But the speakers that you're going to hear today, the participants and our speaker, are responsible for their own statements, and their statements do not necessarily reflect the views of Western Liberty Network. I'm going to share the screen real quick while people continue to come on. This is Western Liberty Network's website, and we can see Steve Moore's face there. Normally, you can get to it by going westernlibertynetwork.org. That is not working at this moment. This is the site that does work right now, but I expect the service will be up very shortly. If you would like to access our training assets, you can go to the training tab, and here you have various training documents that can be downloaded free of charge, pictures of various WLN events, and if you scroll down a little further, you will see recordings of previous Saturday sessions. This one will be posted right here, no later than on Tuesday, and you can scroll down for the topic that you want. If you value what you see and would like to support Western Liberty Network, you can go to the support tab and make one-time contributions or monthly contributions. All of the contributions made to Western Liberty Network are fully tax deductible. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to turn the session over to my friend Stephen Moore, who is also a friend of Western Liberty Network. He's spoken at a number of events in the past, and he's going to give us an update of what is going on in DC under the Biden administration. So Steve, go ahead. I'll mute myself and turn the session over to you.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Can indeed.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. It is a privilege to be speaking to you this afternoon. I'm a huge fan of Western Liberty Network. I am a donor and contributor to the program. So it's just a real privilege to be talking to you all. And thank you for doing what you do to promote liberty in a very blue state. So I know sometimes it feels like you're climbing Mount Everest, but I assure you that there is a political earthquake coming, I think, in this country, and you've seen it certainly. I'm following very closely what's happening in California right now, where there's a, I'd say nearly a 50-50 chance that the left-wing Governor Gavin Newsom will be thrown out of office, and that maybe someone like Larry Elder will be the next governor of California, which would be pretty incredible. That would be a political sonic boom if something like that happened. And so, you know, that can happen in California. You look at what's happened in New York with Governor Cuomo having to resign, and that state is in a complete state of chaos. You just see all sorts of really interesting things happening politically around the country. I live in Virginia, and then I'm helping our gubernatorial candidate here, Glenn Youngkin, who is our election, by the way, is this November. The voting starts in a few weeks here because of early voting. And if that were to happen with Glenn winning against Terry McAuliffe, who's the biggest Democratic fundraiser of all time, it would be another big denunciation by voters of Biden and all the things that he's doing. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about the economic policies, and then I'd really enjoy hearing your questions and comments and concerns. Joe Biden, I think, is a catastrophically bad president. I think everything he is doing is completely contrary to the economic and national security's interests of the country. I think every day that goes by, more and more Americans are seeing that it's, by the way, it's not just Biden, it's the left. And the left has taken over the White House. The left has taken over the agencies of government. We just did an analysis at our Committee to Unleash Prosperity. And by the way, I hope every one of you watching this video or watching live will go to our website, Committee to Unleash Prosperity, and you can get our hotline that comes out every morning. It covers a little bit of politics and a little bit of the economy and a little bit of COVID. It's been described by people like Newt Gingrich as the most important thing to read every morning. You can read it in 5 minutes, but it gives you a great insight of about what's happening with the economy and the political situation around the country. So just send me an email or and give me your email, or by the way, I'm at steve.moore@heritage.org, or you could just go to the Committee to Unleash Prosperity website and just click that you want to get the hotline and give us your email, and we'll send it to you 5 mornings a week. So, and it's free, costs nothing. So I had warned that, you know, if the Democrats won, that they, you know, they're not just ideologically out of line with American ideals of American greatness, but they are also incompetent. Liberals are incompetent and ideologically out of line. And so you're seeing a big confidence problem right now in Washington. I don't see that with any joy. I think I wish I had been wrong, but actually I was wrong. I thought Biden would be more of a centrist president. That's not happened. He's made Barack Obama look like Ronald Reagan. I mean, these people around him are true left-wing, true believers in the socialist dogma and the idea of transforming America. So we're up against a formidable foe. The barbarians are truly at the gates right now, and this is an important time for people to be extraordinarily hyperactive in terms of trying to roll back what's happening in Washington and many of the state capitals that are run by Democratic governors like yours. So that's what we're up against. Obviously, this last 2 weeks, in my opinion, has been about as bad a 2-week period for any president that I've seen. And I go back to, you know, Jerry Ford. So this has been just a meltdown of this presidency, and people are now seeing it, obviously, not just because of the catastrophe that's going on in Afghanistan now, but also by the way, I'm not one who was in favor of going on to Afghanistan in the first place, but to see what's happening now is not just a black eye for America, which it is, but it's also dangerous. It only emboldens terrorists and America's enemies. You know, weakness is provocative, and America looks weak and feckless right now. So this is a dangerous situation for the country. But with respect to the economy, which is my area of expertise, you know, obviously we've got a crisis at the border. We've got, you know, this potential problem with the Delta variant, and that has shaken consumer confidence. I'm of the belief that the Delta variant is not nearly as serious as the, you know, earlier variants of COVID. I think the evidence is pretty clear on that. And I think there's been, you know, a kind of people are frightened by this, but I think a little excessively. And I'm not saying it's not dangerous. I'm just saying that people get vaccinated, and by the way, I believe people should have obviously free choice about getting vaccinated, but your chances of having an adverse, having a problem with COVID are 100 times greater than any kind of adverse reaction from these vaccines. But that being said, we do have the threat of more shutdowns of businesses and lockdowns and curfews and mask wearing, and that is concerning to me as a libertarian. But I do think we'll get through this. And some of these southern states that had a big outbreak, like Florida, are already peaking, so that's good news. With respect to the economy, Biden has put America on a path towards bankruptcy if he's able to get all of his policies through. We started out with $1.9 trillion of spending that was unnecessary. We still had $1 trillion that hadn't even been spent from the previous bill, and they piled on $1.9 trillion. And mostly that was a blue state bailout. It was a bailout for states like New York and California and Illinois and New Jersey that had completely mismanaged their economy during the COVID crisis and shut down their businesses. And then they had to go to states like West Virginia and Indiana to get money so they could stay afloat financially. And then we have this $1 trillion phony infrastructure bill, which is an atrocious bill, really. It's only about $1 out of every $4 is for roads and bridges and highways. Most of it is for green energy projects, windmills and solar panels, and charging stations for Teslas, and massive amounts of money for transit, massive amounts of money for Amtrak, and failed federal programs. By the way, it was 60 years ago or so that Amtrak was turned over to the federal government, and they've been promising, for 60 years that financial, independence is right around the corner. Of course, it's just the opposite. It loses more and more money the longer the government runs that stupid railroad. So that's the kind of thing this money spends money on. It's twice as expensive for the federal government to build infrastructure than the private sector because of all the crazy environmental labor rules that go along with this. It's really a giveaway to the unions and giveaway to the green energy lobby. Shane, there were 19, I believe it was 19 Republicans in the Senate who voted for that. I'm distressed by that. I don't see any rationale whatsoever for voting for a $1 trillion spending, but we should be cutting government spending right now, not raising it. And so then you've got this $3.5 trillion, what I call the new Great Society bill. It's just basically a new version of all of the welfare programs that were created in the 60s. And as the saying went, we fought a $2 trillion war against poverty, and poverty won. Those programs did not work. They just simply created a culture of dependency, especially among Black Americans. And it did severe damage to the Black family and to Black economic progress, and whites as well. So I sure pray every night that bill is defeated. It would massively expand Medicare, it would massively expand Medicaid. It would give free healthcare, free childcare, free kindergarten, free community college, free massive increase in food stamps. I mean, it's just a massive income transfer program that would be extremely damaging. Incidentally, we have the unemployment insurance. And I believe in Oregon, your state has continued to provide these $300 a week supplemental unemployment benefits, which is monumentally stupid. The states that have ended those benefits have cut their unemployment rates by, according to the Wall Street Journal this morning, about 1.5 to 2 percentage points lower unemployment in the states that ended those benefits. So, if I were running the state, or if I were advising the governor, I'd say get rid of those unemployment benefits, extra unemployment benefits immediately. There are 10 million jobs open in America today, 10 million. So there is no shortage of jobs. There's a shortage of workers, and that's because it's really difficult for small businesses to compete with Uncle Sam that is providing people with so much free money. We estimate, by the way, in a state like Oregon, that a family of 4 with 2 unemployed parents and 2 children can get benefits of up to $80,000 to $100,000 a year without paying a penny, without paying any taxes, but also without working a single hour. I mean, how crazy is that? How can private employers compete with a government that gives that kind of? It's not a social welfare safety net. It's a social welfare hammock that we provided. And so I feel very strongly we should be back to the normal unemployment insurance benefit and require work. Every unemployment program, every welfare program, every food assistance program should all require work. It all has to be anchored on the idea that anybody getting government assistance has to be working. And that would get people into the labor force and off of the dependency of government. The debt is a huge issue right now. And by the way, it's all a result of excessive spending. Revenues are coming in fine right now for the government. It's really a big problem of all of the $6 trillion that Biden has proposed. And incidentally, that $6 trillion, people get confused because there's so many different pots of money here. But the $6 trillion is on top of the normal $4 to $5 trillion the budget. In other words, it's extra. That's $6 trillion on top of the normal $4 to $5 trillion budget. So you can see how insane this is. And the Democrats believe that this is their magic moment. They realize it'll be probably a long, long time before they have control of the House, Senate, and the White House at the same time. So they are, capitalizing on this moment. They know that they're going to lose the Congress in 2022, and they know that. And I think those losses will be very, very severe. I think there will be a huge punishment to the Democrats who vote for this, but they view this as their one moment to transform America. And once you get these entitlements and these government spending programs in place, it's very, very, very difficult to replace them. So one of the reasons I was eager to do this broadcast, the Zoom call, is it's a time for action. I do believe that we have the capacity as citizens to rise up and object to this. We need a new Tea Party movement over the next 3 months. This is the war of the worlds that's going on. There was a report that came out that the left groups are going to spend $100 million to try to, on a quote, advertising campaign to promote all these crazy new government programs. And so our side, we'll be lucky if we get half of that, how much money raised. So, by the way, they're using the money they got from the last COVID relief bill to advertise for more money for, this is basically, a cash in, cash out system. Government gives these groups money. They use that money to advertise for more money, and it goes on and on and on. And we have to bring an end to that vicious cycle. I estimate that if the Biden budget were to pass with the $6 trillion of spending, that we would see the national debt, which is now right at about 100% of GDP, over the next 30 years, it would triple to 300% of GDP, which would place America into a very severe bankruptcy situation. It would cause rapid inflation. Inflation is real. It's here. Inflation is now running at 5.5%. Wages are growing at 4%, which is good, except that if you got 4% wage growth, but you got 5.5% inflation as an increase in cost of living, it means people's paychecks are actually shrinking. In terms of the general economy right now, it is strong. I haven't been to Oregon recently, but I just got back from California. Things are starting to even pick up in California, despite all of their problems, as businesses reopen and as most workers go back to work. And so I do think the rest of this year is going to be pretty strong, but I really do worry about a massive debt hangover effect starting in 2022. It could last, a while. This is every good policy we put in place under Trump. As many of you know, I was one of Trump's economic advisors. Almost every single policy on deregulating the economy, on getting better trade deals, on promoting American energy, on lowering taxes, on getting government out of the way. All of these policies are being reversed. And that's distressing to me. I think you're going to see an economy really hobbled in 2022 and 23. This year, again, because of the reopening, the economy should be good. And incidentally, that this has almost nothing to do with Biden's policies. It was Operation Warp Speed, which got us this vaccine thanks to a massive deregulation effort and a way to circumvent all the rules at the FDA so that we could get these drugs on the market. And the fact is that Trump was able to get the vaccine really out on the market in 10 months. Nobody thought that was possible. Even the New York Times about a year ago said when Trump says he can get a vaccine in 10 months, he's lying to the public. It's going to take 2 or 3 years. And so that's the good news, is we do have a very effective and safe vaccine out there that is allowing people to go back to work and saving lives. I'll simply conclude by saying that I think that if we don't prevail now, if we don't stop these people, then it's going to take us many, many years, maybe decades, to undo the damage that they want to do. And just to give you a shotgun, synopsis of what they want to do, they want to change the labor laws so that the 25 states that have right to work laws would be abolished. That means workers would have to be forced to join a union and forced to pay union dues against their will. Now, I know you already have that policy in place in Oregon, but there are 26 states today that have right to work laws, which basically say that you cannot be compelled against your will to join a union and pay dues. Well, they want to get rid of those 26 right to work laws in those states and require everyone to pay union dues. They want to change the situations. They want to, they are hell-bent on getting rid of things like voter ID cards. They want to make Washington, D.C. the 51st state, because that would mean 2 more Democratic senators. They want to pass that $6 trillion spending bill. They want $3.5 trillion of tax increases. Those include reversing almost all of the Trump tax cuts, which were so overwhelmingly successful and actually led the rich to pay more taxes, not less. And they want a 43% capital gains tax. They want a new death tax that would tax people at death. And you'd have to pay for the appreciation of a farm or a ranch or a family-owned business. It's going to kill family-owned businesses, and family-owned businesses are really the heartbeat of America. They are the Walmart, for goodness sakes, really started out as a family-owned business, and so it's an assault against small businesses and family-owned businesses and farms and ranches. You've got a lot of those out there in Oregon, and people should be extraordinarily opposed to what they want to do with the taxes imposed at death. They're going to destroy. People will literally have to sell the farm to pay the taxes. And that's a really, really discouraging situation. So let's fight this. Let's make sure it doesn't happen. Let's use every, arrow we have in our quiver right now. And I've seen it happen. I mean, I saw what happened with the Tea Party. I saw what happened in 1993 when Newt Gingrich and the Republicans took over Congress when Bill Clinton was president. The Democrats are running scared right now. They are incredibly demoralized. They don't know how to handle the fiasco in Afghanistan. You can tell the members of Congress are mystified about how to handle this. And so this is a good time for us to strike back and to stop them, dead in their tracks. And I think we can do it with a smart strategy, with activists like you all, putting every ounce of energy into alerting your fellow citizens and educating people. That's why I love what Western Liberty Network does. You train people to be great activists. And I guess it sounds like you're doing a lot to even get people elected to office locally, which is a fantastic endeavor. Run for school board. But 2022 is going to be one of the best years ever for Republicans. All you have to do is have an hour next to your name. And by the way, I know this is a non-political organization, so you may even want to run as an independent. But you're going to see, I think, a political earthquake, later this year, and then in 22 in the midterm elections, as voters penalize the craziness that's going on in this town and in many of the blue state capitals. So that's my message. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see whether Republicans continue to hold together to fight this. I mean, the worst thing would be if you get peeled off people like Mitt Romney and Lindsey Graham and people who want to vote with the Democrats so they can show they can get things done. One quick thing on the economy. All we need to do right now for the economy to be really strong for the next couple of years is just get the government out of the way. Just do nothing. If Congress would just not even come back, just stop regulating, stop making rules, stop raising taxes, stop massively increasing our debt. I think there is a real resilience to the American economy. We've got the top, technology companies in the world. We've got the top manufacturing companies in the world. We've got the top energy companies in the world. We should be producing all of our energy. We're making so many mistakes right now. It's really painful to see, but I think this too will pass. And I will stop there and take any questions or listen attentively to any comments or criticisms that you might have. So thanks again for allowing me to do this.
Steve, thank you very much. Your time is very valuable, and you're a good friend to Western Liberty Network and by extension, all of the activists that work so hard. Because of the domain problem, our crowd is a little smaller today, but the people who are here are among the leading activists. So this is the right crowd to talk to.
Good.
Those of you who have questions for Steve Moore, give me a moment. I'm going to pass along a couple of questions that have been sent along in the chat window. But then when those are done, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. When you're done speaking, I ask that you remute yourself to avoid feedback. I don't think I have to moderate because I think our crowd is of a manageable size. So I'm going to begin with a question from Deborah Tilden, who writes, is there anyone else besides Senator Manchin to be reaching out to in order to stop the madness of the Democrats' legislative agenda?
That's a great question. I don't think we can reach out to either of your two Oregon senators. I think that sounds like a lost cause. Well, pay attention to Utah. They have two senators there that are Democrats. Both are won by very narrow margins. Kristen Sinema is sounding a lot like Joe Manchin lately. And so we're working, look, Democrats have to hold every single one of their 50 senators, every one of them. They need unanimity. And so Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and people like that hold all the cards. The saying in Washington right now is Joe Manchin is the second most important person in Washington. There's a lot of truth to that. I mean, he can basically set the bar in terms of whether we spend $1 trillion or $2 trillion or $3 trillion and what the policies are. So I think Utah, Arizona is two senators. One of them is Sinema, and I forget the name of the other Arizona senator. He was just recently elected, but he's not the sharpest tool in the bag. But he's also not,
Mark Kelly.
Who's that?
Was that Mark Kelly?
Yes, Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mark Kelly is the newly elected senator, and he is. I believe it's the McCain seat, and I think that he's up for re-election this year. So, there's chances with. I'm trying to think. The problem is the Democrats are like those North Korean soldiers you see marching in front of, their leader and just in lockstep. They're like robots. But there's also.
And they get shot if one of them steps out of rhythm.
So yeah.
Exactly. And so they're but in this House, and I'm not as familiar with the House because I've been concentrating in the Senate, there are at least 15, almost 20 Democrats who represent Republican districts. And, basically what happened in the election, I mean, I do think there was a lot of voter fraud. I'm not going to get into the issue whether the election was, quote, stolen, but there was a lot of election fraud, no question about it, because of the change in the voting rules. But look, Trump, women just did not like Trump. They just did not like his behavior. They didn't like some of the offensive things that he said. And so it wasn't like people said, oh, well, let's elect Joe Biden so we can have $6 trillion of new spending and bankrupt the country. I genuinely believe most Americans had no idea what they were in for if they elected Biden and how radical the left is and how, this is a progressive movement that hates capitalism, that wants to transform America. So I think put pressure on, I don't know, are there any Democrats that are members of Congress that are in swing districts there?
There might be, sometimes Schrader surprises us in District 5. Of course, we've got District 2. And we will have a District 6.
Yes.
And Oregon
picks up a new seat, right?
That's right. We pick up a district.
So right now it's what, four Democrats and one?
Four Democrats, one Republican. And depending on how they redraw the districts, 5 could be more competitive in 22.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's going to happen is the Democrats, especially like this new district, they're going to have to repudiate Biden because Biden's going to be so unpopular. And so, there's everything in politics is about timing. And, I feel sorry for people who ran for Congress in 2018. It was a horrible year and they got obliterated. But the Democrats are going to have the same kind of, as bad as 2018 was, that's how bad it's going to be for the Democrats. So the Republicans are going to win a lot of seats that, gosh, I didn't even know this person was in trouble. So don't count out, Republicans being competitive in a couple of these congressional and state representative seats that you wouldn't normally think were on the board. So, given what's happened, look, already consumer confidence was low. Biden's approval ratings were falling even before Afghanistan. So I believe his approval ratings are going to be, well below 50% now. And that makes him very politically vulnerable, and all the Democrats who ran with him to be very vulnerable.
Darlene, I think that Congressman DeFazio I think Alex Garlatos, he did very well last time, and I think he could unseat Peter DeFazio. He's an Afghan veteran of that war, and I think if he plays his cards right, DeFazio is running scared.
Darlene, I couldn't hear you very well. I'm not sure.
I was saying that I think that Alex Garlatos is, that he's making Peter DeFazio run scared.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Oh, by the way, in reference to Steve Moore's joke about the Democrats marching in step like North Korean soldiers, I have this for you.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Send that to me. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's very good. We'll put that on our hotline. So it really is. I mean, they're not thinking people. They just, AOC and Bernie Sanders are running the party right now. And there's not an adult in the room at the White House. It's run by a bunch of, kids who don't know anything. And, it's a dangerous time for the country, frankly. I mean, I'm really afraid for our country right now. These people are crazy, they're lunatics, and they're incompetent. And we have to get them out. We can't keep them in power. And, that's why it's going to be so important what you all do as activists. I mean, I know you're the leading activist in the state of Oregon. And, I've lived through what happened in 1994. I remember what happened in 2010. I mean, any Democrat with running for dog catcher was vulnerable. I mean, people were so angry, and that anger is just starting to really percolate. So I think it's a great time for what you do at Western Liberty to be extremely effective and transformative.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words. It always makes me smile when he says good things about us. So at this point, does anyone else have questions for Steve? He's a high-powered guy. We've got him here. Now's your chance. Go ahead, Deborah.
Heritage does such great work, and our Congressman Bentz has an 81 score. It'd be nice if it was a little higher. We're working on him. So what do you see as far as there's so many issues we're facing. It's kind of hard to pick one. Like you said, there's just so many fronts that there's such a battle going on. But one of the things is the packing of the court. The Keep 9 Amendment. How much progress is happening with that?
That's not really something I follow that closely.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I share your concern. That's a huge issue, and the court packing is something that, the Democrats were very serious about, 4 or 5 months ago. I think this is just my gut instinct, but I think given what's happened in the last few weeks with the meltdown in the Biden presidency, the idea that they're going to come in and try to pack the court would be so incredibly unpopular that, Franklin Roosevelt, for those of you historians, know that FDR, who was one of the most popular presidents at the time, he tried to pack the court, and even somebody with like a 75% approval rating couldn't get it done because Americans rebelled against that. So imagine if you had a president who's, underwater, trying to pack the court. I think there would. I'm not saying we shouldn't fight against this. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's, that would be so dangerous if they were able to pack the court. And, these people really, they don't believe in rules. They don't believe in, fair play. They just believe in power. So anything that will advance their agenda, they will do. So, packing the court is one way of, and they're what makes them especially dangerous is they're like, they believe that they're righteous, right?
Yes.
They're righteous. So anything they do is justified because they're righteous and we're not. And so, they're like religious zealots. And
well, that's what they've said about burning Portland, is that it was a righteous act for Antifa and BLM to have destroyed the city of Portland, Oregon.
They're righteous, so they can burn down buildings and destroy private property and kill people because, they're
justified. They're a righteous movement.
So I'll try to find out what's going on with the court packing. I haven't heard a lot about it in the last few months, which means that I think that they've retreated on that. It doesn't poll well at all. Americans, even liberals, many liberals are against that, and almost all independents are against it. Some of the crazier things they want to do, like DC statehood, Puerto Rico statehood, a lot of those things are not going to happen. I think getting rid of voter ID cards, that even though they really want to do that, I just don't, they're so unpopular that I just think it's really difficult. So, but here's what you have to be really concerned about. And it's kind of a sideways way of answering your question. So what they're putting together right now is called reconciliation. And that, I don't want to get into the weeds on that because I don't even fully understand how the rules work. But what reconciliation is a bill that is a budget bill that is, it's the one piece of legislation that you can pass without a supermajority. You can't filibuster it. So all they need is 50 votes in this, 50 votes plus one in the Senate and a majority in the House, and they can pass this reconciliation bill. So the plan, what they're trying to do is like say everything that they want to do, every possible thing, DC statehood, get rid of state right to work laws, pack the court, blah, blah, blah. They're going to try to put all of this stuff into this gargantuan bill. By the way, I've heard that this bill, I talked to a Senate staffer last week. He said they think it could be 20,000 pages long. 20.
Oh my gosh.
Long. So they're talking about rewriting all the law. There's going to be crap in that bill. Nobody even knows that's in there, right? I mean, how many members of Congress are going to vote for it, read a 20,000 page bill? You've got 24-year-olds over in the Senate writing these laws. They don't, they're just left-wing ideologues and nobody even knows what's in this bill.
20,000 pages. That's almost as long as Atlas Shrugged.
Exactly. It's like, it's like reading Atlas Shrugged 20 times. So, so that's why this is dangerous, because they're going to try to stick all this stuff in this bill. And then it's going to probably go right up to Thanksgiving or Christmas. And then there's going to be a mad rush to get this thing through. And the Democrats are just going to try to whip that's why they call it a whip. The whip is the person who gets those votes and try to get every Democrat to vote for it. And that's why what we need to do is say no to this reconciliation.
Absolutely.
A 20,000 page bill. Nobody knows what's in it. It's the biggest tax increase ever, biggest spending increase ever, all of these other provisions. And so that's what I'm spending the next 4 months. I'm dedicating every single hour of my workday to stopping this reconciliation bill and saying no to the $3.5 trillion, no to $2 trillion tax increase, no to DC statehood, no to abolishing, because these are all unpopular things. And that's what I hope that you all.
Well, and not even unpopular. Some of these things are just flat out unconstitutional. Some of
True.
these things
They don't care about that.
They don't care about that, even though they claim to. They're shredding it while they claim.
They could care less about the Constitution. I mean, come on, really. I mean, these people, all they care about is power and trying to change America so that even if our side were to get rid of them, because they look, most of these Democrats in these Republican districts, they know they're gone. They know they're so a lot of them are just going to walk the plank for Nancy Pelosi. But some of them, there's a self-preservation instinct among any politician. And so, we need to make sure, and they are going to pass a reconciliation bill, but our job is to make sure it's as, least bad as possible.
Yep. We have a question from Carla Pletka. Go ahead, Carla. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hi, Carla.
Right. Hi. Thank you so much for taking this time. I'm curious, what do you suggest people do with the looming inflation that's going to happen here to protect themselves? You could be losing your retirement. What's cash going to do? Are they going to move to cryptocurrency and control that? I mean, how bad do you think this is going to get? Thank you.
Well, that's a great question. By the way, yesterday I was in Los Angeles and I did a PragerU video. I don't know if any of you are familiar with PragerU, but the last one I did, I got 13 million viewers. So, and this one we just taped, they're putting it together now. It'll take about 3 weeks for them to produce it, is about exactly what you're talking about and linking this in the massive spending that they're doing and borrowing to the inflation. I mean, it seems, Joe Biden, among the many absolutely ridiculous things that he said recently, and by the way, I'm really wondering how mentally fit he is right now, but he said something like, he was asked a question about 3 weeks ago at a town hall meeting that was put on by CNN. This small businessman said, well, what are you going to do about inflation? The prices are rising. And he said, oh, well, my economists tell me that if we want to stop inflation, the first thing we have to do is pass my $3 trillion debt bill. I'm like, what? That's like saying the best thing to do to stop a forest fire is to drop gasoline on it. I mean, really? Does anybody really think borrowing and printing $3 trillion more money is going to make inflation better? It's obviously going to increase inflation. So I share your concern. I think inflation is, which is right now running at about 5 to 5.5%, could easily, if that bill passes, I think you'd see, Jimmy Carter level inflation, 10, 11% inflation, as you just pour more money into the economy. It lessens the value of every dollar bill you have. And that's why Jimmy Carter lost. I mean, there were a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons that Jimmy Carter lost to Reagan was people were so enraged by going to the grocery store every week and seeing prices higher and higher and higher and higher. And they could feel that their paychecks were shrinking.
And don't forget 20% mortgage rates.
Sorry?
Don't forget 20% mortgage rates.
20% mortgage rate. Now, look, we have low interest rates now, and the left is making a big gamble that the bond market won't respond. And I'm actually surprised about that because the 10-year Treasury bill is at 1.3% right now or something like that. And by the way, you asked me about, what should people do? I'm not a great financial investment advisor, believe me, but I will say this, I would never buy a government bond right now. I mean, that would be the absolute worst. I mean, who would buy a 10-year Treasury bond at a 1.3% interest rate? That basically is, but you're betting that over the next 10 years, inflation is going to be less than 1.3%? I mean, is there anybody who believes that? I mean, I would not buy government bonds. I do think that, the cryptocurrencies are very interesting. They're the new gold in the sense they've become the new hedge against the dollar devaluation and currency, the fiat currency devaluations. I'm not an expert on crypto, so I'm not, recommending it, but I'm just saying, that I think the more reckless that our policy gets, with respect to our economy, the more people turn to alternative currencies like cryptos. And by the way, I think, gold has been really cheap and it's not done much at all lately. But I think having some gold is always a very sound thing to do. And, real estate too. Real estate usually holds up during periods of high inflation. But I'm not I'm not particularly bullish on the stock market right now, and the stocks have been really, really high, and I do think there's going to be a correction at some point, especially if, you know, the market is kind of betting that the Republicans are going to be able to stop the Democrats from doing what they want to do. But, you know, I'm not entirely convinced of that. So I think now it's time to be just very careful and cautious with your money. I certainly wouldn't, you know, if I had $1 million, I wouldn't throw it into the stock market right now. And I certainly wouldn't buy government bonds with it.
We have a question from BZK. I don't have any other identifier, but BZK had their hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself, BZK. Okay, you're not muted. Go ahead, BZK. Deborah was next in the queue. Let's go to Deborah, and we'll come back to BZK when he or she has worked out the audio issue. Go ahead, Deborah. Unmute yourself and ask your question. And Bill Dyer also has a question.
Go ahead, take Bill.
Hey, it's Bill Dewey. Can you hear me?
Bill Dewey.
Hi, Bill.
Sorry. Hi, Bill.
Hi. Thanks for everything you do, Steve. Appreciate it very much. To me, the biggest obstacle we face is getting our electorate educated. I talk to people all the time, you know, who say, wow, if I'd known that, I might have, you know, voted different or something. And I think we've all heard that statistic where 17% of the other folks may not have voted for Joe if they had heard the story about Hunter, which was squashed just before the election. So I'm concerned about the biased reporting in the media, and having had some experience with the media, as you have in recent years, I wonder if you have thoughts about what we can do to hold them more accountable, to include possibly the Section 230 thing with big tech. Thank you.
Well, boy, there's a lot there. I'll simply say this, that, you know, yes, of course, the media is more biased now than ever before. I mean, the big media of the New York Times, the Washington Post, the networks, CNN, you know, they are playing for the other team. They're just mouthpieces for the Pelosi, Schumer, Biden agenda. And so it is what it is. You know, I mean, it's just a fact that that's what's going on. Now, we have all sorts of alternative media. We get our message out. You know, we have Fox News, and we have, you know, Newsmax, and we have talk radio, and we have, you know, a lot of ways to get our message out that didn't exist 10, 20, 30 years ago. So, you know, we have to use our own media to get a message out to people. And, you know, we have big megaphones. You all have big megaphones, just talking to 10 or 20 people, and you know, creating concentric circles of people who get mugged by reality, you know, and so I'm not quite as dire about the situation. Look, I work for Trump. The press's treatment of Trump was just abominable. They were not even pretending to be non-biased. The press viewed their goal as to make sure that Donald Trump was not reelected, and they thought they were doing some kind of patriotic duty to prohibit him from getting reelected. But the bigger problem, I mean, so the media is the media, but my point is we are a media. This is a media. What we're doing right now is a media. We just need to get more and more people involved. We need to get, you know, thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of people to be listening. But the good news is that Biden's so bad that even the press can't spin this, right? The disasters that are happening in America. They can't spin what's happening at the border. They can't spin what's happening in Afghanistan. They can't spin what's happening at the grocery store and at the gas station. They can't spin an energy policy that is playing right into the hands of the Saudis and the Russians. I mean, people are waking up to what's really happening in this country. And so I do think that that we don't have to be too dour about the media situation. But I am even more concerned, though, about the schools. I mean, the schools are atrocious. We're the only country in the world that teaches our kids how horrible our own country is. There is not, how does a country like this produce people like AOC and young people who are so completely unpatriotic? They reject the idea of American exceptionalism. They really do believe we're the most racist country in the world. By the way, the United States is the least racist country in the world. If you look at just the statistics, I mean, the progress that minorities have made in this country is second to none. And so, I think getting the facts out there is really important. But the schools, I mean, my God, we just can't go another day with letting these left-wing teachers indoctrinate our kids. And, I'm a huge advocate of school choice and charters and letting parents, the education dollars should be with the parents, not with the school districts and the teachers unions. And I think there's good news on that front too. I mean, the polling shows that school choice is more popular today among the public than ever before, because parents got a chance to see firsthand the crap that our kids are learning. And, I live outside of Loudoun County, Virginia. You saw what happened here, where it was just a massive revolt against normal citizens. These weren't conservatives. These weren't people who were political. They just were outraged by the critical race theory. And that's crap. I keep calling crap because that's what it is. It's ahistorical. It's unpatriotic. It's made up fiction. And it's left-wing dogma, and we can't let that continue to happen. I mean, we have to
dangerous
our schools. That's why I love this initiative. I don't know, when you're talking about getting people elected, we need to get more and more people elected to school boards.
Yes.
Now I know the teachers union spend a fortune to make sure that our kind of people don't get elected to the school boards. But I don't know. Have you been working on school board races at all?
Yes, that's one of our leading kinds of local nonpartisan races.
Right.
We won a majority, by we, I mean limited government activists, won a majority on the Newburgh School Board.
Good.
And there have been victories all over the state. The hard cases, Beaverton and Portland, and Eugene and Bend, continue to be hard cases. But there have been gains almost everywhere in the state. And the Newburgh victory was a significant victory.
Well, that's fantastic news, because, there's how many different school districts you must have, different school districts.
Gads of them. There are gads of them. There are 7,000 local elected nonpartisan positions in Oregon, and half of them are up every 2 years.
Yeah. So if you start taking those people out and putting our people in, it makes a big difference. And so that's the way to retaliate, is to beat these people. Yep.
We like to say that we reweave the fabric of our political culture one thread at a time.
Yes.
That is how we're doing it. We've got a little time left. I know that BZK had a question. She doesn't anymore. Okay, that's fine. Deborah, you had one more? Did you have one more? We've got a few minutes left.
Well, one of the concerns with this, what we're hearing here in Oregon with the quote unquote refugees from Afghanistan, Kate Brown is talking about bringing more and more of those into our state. When you look at the big scope of you've talked about this radical ideology of the Democratic Party and the Biden administration, and how much AOC must just be giddy with where things are, because she, with 9/11 coming up, somebody did something on 9/11. I mean, that's disturbing, that there's not more Republicans. This is a real threat to our very republic, our Constitution, when you have, and even Richard, you had mentioned just those people that are running that party right now. Is there anything that, citizens can do with, in a practical sense, as far as those issues go? I mean, they're not, you bring in COVID. we're all being restricted and mandated and vaccinated, and but the amount of people that they're bringing in is pretty concerning.
Well, I don't know what's going on with, and this is just the starting phase of, bringing a lot of Afghan citizens into the United States. I mean, that's what happened after the Vietnam War, happened, refugees from Cuba. I don't know enough really about, who these people are and,
right.
how radicalized they are. I don't know. I mean, but I will say this, that the, what's going on, I'm just going to end this by telling you kind of a little story about another country that, had really flourished. And that is I don't know if any of you have been following this, but it's what's happened in Chile. And the story of Chile is very simple, one concise story. So Chile was a pretty poor country, and it was run by, leftists and, the Che Guevara types. And then in the 1970s, Chile brought in the Chicago boys, the free market economists like Milton Friedman and others, to help, redo their economy. And they implemented all of these things like a flat tax and a rule of law and private property rights and pro-business policies, and so on. And it was transformational. I mean, Chile went from being one of the poorest countries in South America to being 35 years later, one of the richest countries in South America. And wow. It was a situation where the per capita income in 35 years in Chile almost tripled, which is really, when you think about it, 35 years in that, is nothing, is an eye blink in history. And yet people's and average people saw just big gains. But what's interesting about this story is that while all this is going on, the left, the Che Guevara, socialist, Marxist left was objecting to all these policies. They hate capitalism. So they were, just using the media and so on to, they had the whole thing with Pinochet and, he was evil. And, he was evil apparently because he wanted, he wasn't a great person by any means, but the point is they wanted to get rid of the free market reforms. And so to make a long story short, what they started doing was they started infiltrating all the cultural institutions in Chile. So it was first the schools, then it was the universities, then it was the churches and the clergy, and then it was media, and then it was social media. And it was this message over and over again of it's not fair, only the rich are getting richer. It's racist. All these policies are holding back the poor. Now, does any of this sound familiar?
Man.
So it was the same kind of thing. And so what happened was like 3 or 4 years ago, they finally, through this indoctrination that they were very slow. It was a slow process, but they'd taken over all the cultural institutions, and they were able to get all of these reforms overturned, in the name of social justice. And what happened is Chile is just, their economy's gone into the toilet. It's a sad, sad story. And it's amazing how, it takes a long time to build something, but you can tear it down.
Yes.
Quickly. And so Chile is really in trouble. It's just so sad that these leftists are so good at what they do in terms of indoctrinating and infiltrating. And that, I think, should be a cautionary tale for the United States. That's exactly what's happened here. The university has taken over by the left. Our schools have been taken over by the left. The churches have been taken. I mean, my God, we've got, I'm Catholic. We don't even have a Catholic Pope right now, for goodness sakes. I mean, so,
well, and they supported infanticide.
Yeah, they've just all the institutions
farthest end of the spectrum as you can go.
And we have to start taking them back.
Yes.
That's the message.
Yes.
That's why I wanted to do this. And I got to run because I've got to do a quick Fox hit. But by the way, let me just do a self-advertisement. At 7 p.m. tonight, which is in 2 hours, 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
I'm going to,
For our time.
I taped the Mark Levin show.
Nice.
And it's, you know, I'm on for about 15 minutes. We did 2 7-minute segments, and it's all about, it's a nice, concise discussion about what we've been talking about. So if you get a chance, turn that or tape it or turn it on. This is actually a rerun. We did it. It ran a few nights ago already. And my God, I got a huge response from it. It's been really popular about, you know, what a great danger Biden is to our economic well-being and his assault on the Constitution. So anyway, if you have a chance, you can watch me on the Mark Levin show at 7 p.m. Eastern. I guess that would be 4 p.m. your time. And thanks again for everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Steve. Steve's a great friend to WLN. Hey, maybe you can give us a plug on TV one of these days. Expand out.
As I said, I'm a contributor in a lot of ways, but I also donate money because we have just a very small foundation, but I feel that what you guys do is so impactful, and I wish we could just clone you and put you in 50 states. And I know that you work on a shoestring budget. So, I mean, that's all the more impressive, what you're able to achieve.
Well, I'd love to be cloned. Send in the clones. Isn't that how the song goes?
That's a good line. All right, guys. Bye.
Anyway, you take care, Steve. Goodbye, everyone. God bless.